Hey, I have a second channel, Cube Computer Plexi. Hey everybody, I've gotten some requests on some recent videos in regards to this tech room. People say it'd be a nice idea to have a dedicated machine for the tech room, and I think it's a good idea as well. Because prior to moving to this place, the mid-tower deluxe is just a couple feet away from this table. But here, the mid-tower deluxe is actually in the room behind me. In living room, which is not too big of a deal, but it'd still be nice to have a machine right here for testing things and whatnot. So I figured we're going to build a machine just for that. Here you're looking at a case that has been around since before Cube Computer Channel existed, back when I was still on Bike Geek CCP on YouTube. It's a Next Gen Deluxe case. It's a custom E-Machines chassis. Now the paint job is kind of left to be desired. It could use another coat of paint. And the plexiglass window has got a couple of cracks in it because when I drilled out the plexiglass, things just didn't quite line up as they should have. But it's the Next Gen Deluxe. Kind of dirty. This needs a little bit of cleaning up, but what I'm thinking is I could take this audio panel out of here because I doubt I ever need to use headphones or whatnot. If I wanted to, I could probably do some sort of redneck modification to the chassis and mount these somewhere else. I'm thinking about taking this out so that way I can route out some power cables and a SATA cable to do, that way I can hook up hard drives. Of course I could use a docking station as well, but for the time being I can pop this out of here and have a SATA cable running out, so that way I can hook up hard drives or data recovery or whatnot. But yeah, this case is sat under my table for 6 years. Well, 7 years actually. 2009 is when I made this thing. It's been about that long since there was a motherboard in this machine. Yeah, what this thing could really use if I wanted it to look really good is it needs to be sanded down. Had this panel taken out, the glass taken out, sand this whole thing down, give it a fresh coat of silver, and of course replace the plexiglass and hopefully not mess it up. So I'm going to stand this back and see if we can get this thing open here. Okay, let's go ahead and open this thing up. Kind of tricky to get open. It's been a while. Because this plexiglass window is so big on this, you don't have much wiggle room to get it off. But yeah, it cracked right there and right there when I mounted it many years ago. It's unfortunate. It happens. I mean, the stuff's pretty cheap. You can get it for, I don't know exactly how much it sells for nowadays, but you can buy it from Lowe's or wherever. Set that on the floor for now. I'm willing to bet this fan here might have bearing issues. Kind of curious to see. Actually, no, it's okay. Moves more air than it really needs to, though. Oh, we do have bearing problems. Yep. So I need to take that out. It's amazing I can remember things from that many years ago. Okay, so this case fan that's in here it needs some lube. Bearings are a little bit rattly. Fan moves a little more air than I think it needs to, but then again, so this is actually an LED fan. So we may as well use it. Could use some cleaning too. You know how that goes. Let's get all the stuff I need and I'll be right back. Okay, actually I decided to go and look to my stash of fans and I found one that is actually multicolored. So I tested it and tried to clean it up some. And I didn't notice any issues with its bearings, so we're going to go ahead and install that one instead. Okay, as I mentioned, I'm going to go ahead and remove the audio connections here. I just got the fan installed in the back. Because I'm going to use this instead as a way to route a couple of cables through. Got a box down there somewhere where this can go in. Now we're going to snap the bezel back on. I may also figure out a way to feed in some additional USB ports, but that'll be for a later time. And pop in a DVD drive for an E-machine system, since I apparently took another one out of this one a while back. It's a DVD burner actually. So if I so decide that I want to burn DVDs with this, I can. Okay, now I'm going to install power supply. Use one of my old cherry red supplies as I called them. Got these off of Newegg 7 years ago. $25 a piece. I bought two of them actually. Not exactly the same time, but the only issue I had with them was capacitor failures. Had to replace some bad caps in these, but other than that, these are not your typical cheap end supplies. They probably weigh a good, possibly, I don't know, 2-3 pounds. Got big heat sinks in them. They're actually made by an OEM called Wintech. They're kind of based on a dated design. Actually, I have a -5 volt rail, but this one here used to power the Mid-Tower Black Max, and it done it reliably for many years. And I still have the other one in its actual box. And it has LED fans inside it for a nice look, and a sleeved main cable. And they provide all the connections I need. And then some. That's right, I actually added SATA connections to this one a while back. Originally, this particular supply only had 6 4-pin Molex and 2 SATA connections, along with an ATX 24-pin and ATX 12-volt. No video card connections. I was going to use this one in the Black Max there for a while, and I had recently upgraded that machine to take all the drives were SATA, so I needed more SATA power connections. So I actually wired in some additional SATA power connections. I'll show you here in a second. Okay, let's go take a better look at the power supply. What I've done to it. This power supply originally had 6 4-pin Molex connections and 2 SATA connections, along with the ATX 12-volt and the ATX 24-pin. I needed more SATA connections on this power supply a while back, so what I did is I took off one of the leads. I had 3 Molex, and I added in this sleeve from a different supply that I scrapped. It has, I think I previously had mentioned in this video that this had 3 SATA connections. It's actually 2 SATA and 1 4-pin Molex. So this power supply now has 4 4-pin Molex and 4 SATA. So it kind of evens it out. I'm going to snag this through the front, because what I have in mind here is what I can do is I can set this up to where the SATA is hot swappable, and that way I can plug in drives as needed. I'm going to snake this out front, so that way I have the SATAs available, along with a 4-pin Molex. So depending on how many SATA connections the motherboard has, let's go from there. Now I have an ID to USB adapter for hooking up IDE hard drives. So, and the good thing is this case, the metal here is, they designed it where there's no sharp edges here. So what I can do is I can zip tie this wire lead in here somewhere. We'll figure it out as we go. Alright. Okay, let's have a look at the motherboard I chose for this. This came out of TV box number 2. I'm sure you guys may not even been aware there was a second TV box. It's just like the TV box that was in the living room at my parents' place there for a while. Pretty nice motherboard for its time. It's actually an AM2 board, so it uses the it's based off of DDR2. I think our processor on there is a AMD X2 4400 Plus. It's got an AMD chipset. I'm trying to remember exactly what kind of chipset it has. I think it's a 700 series. I wouldn't know for sure until I get this in service, but no USB 3.0, and I believe, of course, no SATA 3.0 either. It's just your SATA 2, which is the 300 megabit per second throughput. Other than that, not too bad. I got 3 gigs of RAM on this, so we'll see how that does. Should be fine enough for my needs for this machine. But yeah, they had 4 USB headers, so a total of 8 USB ports, 6 SATA connections, along with your IDE. This thing definitely did offer a lot of a lot of I/O for such a motherboard, a MicroTX motherboard. Onboard video has outputs in VGA and DVI, so you can run dual display if you wanted to. SPDIF out for audio. Gigabit LAN, that's an important thing for fast data transfer between the mid-tower deluxe and this thing. But yeah, that's it. So let's go ahead and get this installed. I've already went ahead and put the I/O shield plate into the back of the case, because I tell you, it can be, if you're new to building computers and you have never cut your fingers on one, you will. It'll happen. It will happen. I tell you guys, I have cut my fingers trying to put one in, and the worst injury I've done to my hand was I was pushing with a screwdriver in the I/O shield instead of snapping in, went through, and I cut. It was right in this area. The scar's no longer there, but I made a huge freaking cut on my thumb. It was bad. So when you're building machines, you gotta be careful not to injure yourself when you're putting in the I/O shield plate, because I mean it'll happen. A lot of times when you least expect it to. And guys, I am in the plans of potentially designing a tripod mount that sits over the table and looks down to try and improve on your follow along videos like this. Because of course you can't see what I'm doing inside here, which kind of sucks. I'm just setting this in there and I'm going to bolt it in and then get everything hooked up. And I'll be honest with you guys, other than the sort of proprietary faceplates on the CD drives, these E-machine chassis are nice to build in. The newer ones, from about 2007 onward, are not proprietary with the optical drive, but they're not built as well. So there it is installed. One thing about these E-machine cases that I've always liked is, unlike other OEMs like Dell, is these things for the most part are very friendly for rebuilds. And that happened to a lot of E-machines computers back in the day because of the Bestech HTX250 12E power supply burning up motherboards when its 5-volt standby 2 transistor powered 5-volt standby rail shot up to about 13 volts and fried the chipset. This happened a lot on these things. The only downside is the sort of proprietary faceplates, which I use these kinds of drives in mid-tower Lux. These will interchange. Generally, will interchange with if you decide to upgrade your drive. You just look at the brand of the drive. A lot of times they will interchange. I did this on the Black Max. The Black Max had a 2002, I think Samsung DVD ROM drive. I went online and bought a SATA version, also a Samsung, and that same faceplate transferred right over. Now with the newer E-machines systems, they're not, from about, let's say 2007 onward, they're not so proprietary in the sense of the faceplates for the optical drives, but the cases are not they're not built quite as well, they're not quite as sturdy, but you can still, they're still good for reuse. So I'm going to get these cables hooked up and we'll move on. Okay, I got the motherboard dropped in. and everything hooked up, so we're getting there slowly but surely. Now I'll go ahead and install the hard drives. For hard drives, I'm going to be using a 1 terabyte drive for this is to be the main drive, and I'm going to use this little 120 gig hard drive as a secondary, and I'll be using that for doing my imaging. Basically, I'll be installing a copy of Windows, setting it up, and then doing a sysprep and generalize the hardware on the install, and then boot back into the main drive. And then what I can do is I can actually image this by making a copy to a virtual disk image and storing it, and then I can just deploy it to a hard drive, a new machine whenever, and deploy the operating system. Sound easy? Well, if you're not used to it, it may not be so easy, but it actually saves you a lot of time and hassle. Let's go ahead and insert these drives into this cage. Typical eMachine's hard drive cage from that time frame. So the cage installs like this. I'm going to put the primary drive first and then the secondary drive second. And our hard drive is actually a 1 terabyte enterprise drive that was pulled out of a working machine. It's very heavy too. This is a it's at least a 2 platter. It's from, well, I don't know if I can see the date now because I stuck it in there, but I got another one just like it somewhere. I can tell you the date. Oh, here we go. 2011. 2011. So it's not that old. Well, actually it is getting a little bit old. It's 5 years old now, but it's been sitting in storage for a while. But these enterprise drives are generally pretty robust. Install this one. Yeah, guys, when I was selecting a case to use for this system, I was deciding between an Acer, one of those Acer cases that I have with the hot swappable drive bays and whatnot. You could actually cram a ton of stuff into one of those, but I figured since I had this particular eMachine's case here, I figured we may as well use that for the good looks and all, you know. Also, a good tip, if you're building with eMachine's chassis or you're working on a machine like that and you're adding a second hard drive to this cage, loosen up 2 screws on the first hard drive. That helps the cage open up a bit so that we can easily slide the drive in. Put these 3 screws into the expansion slot covers. And now we'll go ahead and install this. The cage is heavy. Those multi-platter hard drives are kind of heavy now. That the Seagate, I believe, is single platter, though it's an older drive. That shows you how far technology's come over the years. I remember back when 500 gig hard drives being single platter was a big thing, and then sure enough, what, a year or 2 later, Oh, now single platter 1 terabyte drives. I'm sure that they make single platter 2 terabyte drives now. They're probably larger than that. So we just need to go and get some more cables, and we'll go ahead and get this thing finished up. Okay, I went and got the SATA cables put in this thing, and I also went ahead and routed the SATA cables for the front access. And what's funny is they're quite long. Yes, they're very long. You're probably wondering, why would you put the cables in there that are that freaking long? Well, in the case I'm working on a client's desktop, I may not want to pull the hard drive out just to, do something to it. A lot of times I can set the other desktop nearby, and this cable here will be so long, I could reach in there and plug it in and use the desktop that the hard drive's in to power it. But I can hook this cable in to theoretically hook it to this one. So that's all in there, and I think all that's left to do now is see how this thing does. Okay, everybody, it's time for the first startup. Yeah, it's a 4400 plus. Okay, we're in the BIOS now. So here's your look at it. The only thing I hate about this custom case is getting that side panel on is a bit of a chore sometimes. It always wants to fight you. It would look nice if I added some additional lights in there. I think I used to have cold cathode lights in there, but those are long gone. I could add some and make it look pretty cool. I don't think I ever find an e-machine that looks that cool. And I'll go ahead and shut these lights off. It's not very much, it's not really lit up or anything, but that's what you get right there. Got a little bit of light in there from the rear fan, and the intake fan on the power supply is blue. I think it looks pretty cool, actually. Not too bad for it's a service computer. Once in a while I may have clients come in here to have their computers serviced, to speak with them or whatnot. And it's cool it'd be cool to have this, sitting on the desk running, and they can, sometimes you got to think about it. Sometimes that can make you a sale on a custom built computer, just by the looks of one. But yeah, it's not every day you see e-machines looking like that. No, not at all. Yeah, might be one thing to do is get some new lights put in there. Of course, they make LED strips nowadays, unlike the older days where it was cold cathode lights. Not too bad. Alright, let's go and go to the BIOS on this machine. Yeah, it's like I used to do in the old days with the part systems. I would run into the BIOS and show you around. This motherboard, I'm sure, is slammed full of features. Being a retail board and a gigabyte board. Oh yes, you can go in here and really mess with things. You got voltage control for your let's see. Yep, CPU voltage, DDR2 voltage. You can adjust memory clocks, VGA core clock, PCIe clock. Yeah, you got all. Oh yes, down to one, down to each decimal. I'm gonna set that back to auto. Yeah, I just might have to see how well this thing overclock with that little cooler on there. That'd be fun to mess with. Trying to cram some additional performance out of an older CPU. And it looks like it's keeping time. I may have to update it though, depending on what the last time that machine ran, whether it was in sadness time or daylight savings time. Oh yes, I meant standard time, not sadness time. I call it sadness time. This thing last ran when it was daylight savings time. You can see both our drives showing up there for the optical drives, and down here is our two SATAs. What's interesting here is SATA 0 and SATA 1 printed on the board are showing up as IDE channel 2 master and slave. And it is showing 3 gigs of RAM installed. Enable virtualization. So Smart is enabled, so it looks like our drives are okay. Haven't got any notifications. I'm going to set this to RAID. I'm not actually doing RAID on the drives, but you gotta on these particular steps you gotta have it set to RAID in order to get the hot swap capability. You get it through the AMD RAID controller. So SATA port 4 and 5, those are the final two. Interesting. I could those are set to IDE. I'm just thinking about that because I'm going to be doing system images on this. I may actually change this around and actually hook up that little 120 gigabyte hard drive to the to either SATA port 4 or 5 on the motherboard. It's already doing something now. 1 gigabit per second. Cable length less than 10 meters. Oh no, this is cool. It'll tell you. This is really cool. It'll tell you your port speed and how long the cable is. Now this is just going back to the switch here. You know what, guys? I think I'm gonna play around with that. Just for curiosity. I have an Ethernet cable that goes down under the floor, through there, and up through there to that switch back behind the mid-tower Lux. Let's plug that up and see what it says. Just out of curiosity, you know. Anytime I see an interesting feature like that, we gotta try it out. Alright. We got link light, so let's go ahead and try it out. Cable length 22 meters. $20 It's trying to guess. It's probably closer to the 20 meter amount, I think. I wouldn't doubt it. It's going back and forth between 22 and 20. Anyways, that's still pretty cool to tell you your link speed and estimate how long the cable is. So I'm going to go ahead and revert everything back the way it was. After we had a little fun, we're just going to continue on. I tell you, this was a nice board back in its day. It still is a nice board, but yeah, pretty neat actually. USB keyboard and mouse support are both set to disabled right now for some reason. I actually have PS2 plugged in, but anyways. Let's see, power management setup. Pretty typical. And of course everything's running good and cool. don't need smart fan on this particular cooler. It's got a built-in thermistor. It says some smart fans on, but it doesn't matter because the rear exhaust fan is hooked straight to the power supply. So yeah, I'd say this thing it's a go. I'll go ahead and get one that's installed on it. And I'm going to go ahead and pop the cover off, and I'm going to switch the little 120 gig hard drive over to, say, a port 4 or 5, since those are actually set to IDE mode. So theoretically, my idea is if I want to use this machine to start an image setup, what you do is you install Windows to the drive, and you configure it how you want to, and then you sysprep it. My idea is, I could disable the RAID controller and theoretically disable access to the main drive, boot off the little 120 gig drive, and when everything is done, the install has been sysprepped and generalized. All I gotta do is hop into the BIOS, turn the RAID controller on, and then boot off the main hard drive. There you go. And then you still have access to the little 120 gig drive to copy it or do whatever you want to with it. So I'd say this is going to be a pretty nice little machine. So anyways, for those who requested it, I now have it. A machine in a tech room. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Well everybody, that wraps it up for this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like the video, leave a comment, subscribe to Cube Computer channel, and be sure to tick the bell, that way you get notified of new video posts. Also, I recommend following Cube Computer Company on Facebook. A link is in the video description. In addition to computer tech videos, I have a second channel, Cube Comp MTDX. Links are available at the end of this video. Again, I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching and your support.